Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the EasyPower Tuesday Refresher. My name is Jim Chastain. We appreciate all joining the discussion. And as we start off today, first topic of discussion is going to be custom schedule templates with EasyPower. And I'd like to start with our customary poll question. Here's where our questions are going to be. And we appreciate everyone for giving some feedback. So the question is, how often will your projects need custom templates, custom schedules, or the like? So if we get some feedback there, we'd appreciate it. And we'll leave that open for another couple seconds. And here's how folks are looking there, or what things are showing up. So it's a good thing that's what we're talking about today. And then secondarily, how often do custom labels be a source of focus? And it's something we can cover a little bit more in detail as we get into the new year here in the next couple of weeks. And again, I appreciate everyone for participating in this. Excellent. Here's how folks line up on this question. Now clearly, the topic of custom schedules is one of those areas where if you don't need it, it's tough to kind of drill into it, but if you do have the need, then it's very useful information, and you want to kind of bookmark this for future use. It turns out virtually all of our templates are based on XML format, and so while it takes me anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour or so to kind of drill back into it and figure out what the XML code requires, if it's something that your company uses frequently, it's probably a good idea to have someone in the company spend a little bit of time to become more expert in it, in the XML language, so it can be used more frequently or as frequently as needed. So basically, what we're going to do is use an existing schedule. We're going to open it up. In this case, we're using Notepad++. We're going to copy and save with the new name that we want to customize, make the modifications, and then test how the new template works. And as I say, if it's something that's going to be of value to your company, you may want to have someone invest a little bit of time to become fluent in utilizing XML. So XML is a template is a very common way to use formatted presentation material, and you'll find it in web pages, catalogs, and programs like EasyPower. And in this case, I mentioned we're using Notepad++ to edit because it gives us a little bit more assistance in looking at the format rules or the syntax of the XML language. And this particular example, where I'm going to what I'm going to go through here in a couple minutes, is actually in the user's manual. So again, it's someplace I would suggest you bookmark and refer to as you need it. But what it amounts to is, here's what a typical schedule looks like in EasyPower, and it can be put onto the one line or onto a separate drawing, which is a subset of the one line, by just inserting the schedule. But what if we wanted to include the arc flash incident energy for the main bus on the panel and the short circuit current, if we want to include that in the schedule? So how would we go about doing that? Well, what I'm going to show is that by opening up the template that's the standard and then adding an extra row in the template, inserting the arc flash variables. Now it turns out all of the variables in the EasyPower database have a specific nomenclature, and they're accessible for use, and in this case for insertion into an XML template, as long as we use the correct nomenclature. And on page 162 of the manual, there is a list of what these variables are. In the case of short circuit, if you look up short circuit current, The nomenclature is percent SC underscore sim underscore A percent, and likewise arc flash incident energy is percent AFH underscore incident underscore energy percent. Likewise with working distance. And all this is in compliance with NFPA 70E in the tables, Appendix H. So I'm going to jump into both EasyPower and Notepad, and apologize if I'm a little rusty because I've had a couple days off. So let's see where things are going. So what we see here is a display of a schedule, and so I'm going to take this off my one line, and if in this case, I have a schedule panel there. I've duplicated it. I'm going to kind of start over. All right, let's say, for instance, I wanted to take this panel and isolate it to a one line on a drawing. And in either case, if I wanted to include the panel schedule, I go through the same process. So I'm going to move this down here on my page, just knowing that my schedule is going to be kind of large. Highlight the schedule, right-click, and Schedule Insert. And what we get is off the screen down here. Let's try that again. And it really is showing up on my block diagram. Let's try that again. Move this up here. Well, so maybe it ain't. Messing around with two screens is kind of following me up. All right, so this is my standard template. The way this is chosen, if I go in Database Edit to File, Properties, Properties tab, I look at the default library path, which I've selected in the options selections. And these are all my standard templates. For the panel schedule, I have the default, which in this case is just, let's go out and look at it. Actually, let's go show where that's located. If I come back to Options, File Locations, Default Templates, Panel Schedule, it's located under C Users, Documents, EasyPower 9.8 Templates, Panel Schedule. Now, if I want to relocate that or change that to a panel schedule that's been customized, first of all, I need to create that schedule itself. And I'm going to do that with Notepad. So let me kind of start over here. I'm going to go out to that particular folder, and it's under Documents, EasyPower 9.8, Templates, and here's my panel schedule. Now I'm going to open this with Notepad++. As we look at this, we'll see that we can recognize, without even being an XML expert, we can recognize where this matrix starts and where the different rows are formatted to show bus voltage, bus rating, short circuit rating. And when we go back to our schedule itself, here's our voltage, amps, short circuit rating, all in this particular line. What I want to do is add another line beneath this, and put in my arc flash and symmetrical arcing current. So again, I'm going to go back and save that file from Notepad as the name of my custom file. So let's save as, and let's call this custom. I'm going to call it custom gym because I've already got my gym panel schedule that I played with before. I'm going to save this, and then as we go in and open that, we can compare the two. All right, so what I want to do is actually insert a row with basically the same format and then put in those names that I've recognized from the data book pages that list all of the database variable names. And when you do that, let me go back to Notepad. It'll look like this. So here's the name of my panel. Here's my project name, which I wanted to designate. Here's the voltage that existed, the amps, the KIC rating. Here's the extra line I put in. So basically I took the same format as we had in the previous one. I now put in my arc flash, my short circuit current with that designator, the arc flash boundary with that designator, the working distance, and then the incident energy. And what I'm basically trying to do is make sure that my total column span number for these total of the columns that are included in the page width add up to the same number. So I think I got it 12 here, and 7 and 5 is 12 up there. All right, so at this point I expect to see, if I'm using gym panel schedule, this information displayed. So let's go back and see how that works. All right, so once I've made the changes, I want to save it. And now, when I come back to my database, file, properties, panel schedule, I want to designate, I don't want the default, I want to designate a specific one. I pick out this ellipsis for some reason there we go. So I'm going to pick up the new schedule, the custom schedule where I've made modifications and saved. As we designate that and apply it, the tools say, okay, you're using a new template, things are going to change, are you sure you want to do that? In this case, I'm going to say yes. And so now I see an extra line with symmetrical current, arc flash boundary, working distance, and arc flash incident energy. Now, just one word of note, and that's because I've already done this short circuit study. Those values aren't normally stored in the template until I come up, and instead of just doing fault the buses, I want to go down and fault the bus and store the symmetrical current and the arc flash current. So let me see if I can do this fresh and kind of show where that's going to show up. Let's close this out. Not save any changes. Start from scratch. All right, at this point I'm using a fresh arc flash smart design example. So let's go ahead and change it. We're going to auto design everything. And if you recall, auto design doesn't do the medium voltage or high voltage. So as I come in here and try to do a short circuit on it, it's going to say I have an error, and that's because this cable's not sized. So let's go ahead and size this at 80 feet. All right, so now we can do our short circuit focus and fault the buses. All right, at this point I want to display what this panel schedule is, and we're going to select it. And insert the schedule. I guess I need to do that in database edit. Okay, so obviously this is using my old template because as I short circuit and fault the buses, I don't have the custom edition. I want to go into my properties, panel board schedule, pick out the custom that I saved, apply it. It says it's going to change things. You can see it's added the extra line now on my display, but the data is not there. Again, what we need to do, rather than just fault the buses, is go in, fault the bus, advanced, store the symmetrical data, and that shows up nicely, and then fault and store the arc flash, and again, that shows up nicely. So it takes a little bit of trial and error in terms of how many decimal places we're going to show, how many columns we need on the custom template, but that's pretty straightforward, and frankly it's as easy as that, whether you're working with a motor control center or a panel schedule or a panel board. Now just while we're here, if we go to, let's see if I can get this to display now on my I was having trouble inserting a schedule. And the point I want to make here is when I pick a custom schedule, it will show up formatted. Let's see if I can do this. All right. Now you can see I've got my custom schedule being used now for even my isolated page. If I go back and change the schedule back, there we go. Change the schedule back from properties to the default template. It changes it here, and it changes it on my one line. Now I take that back. It actually didn't change it. So that good news is I learned something myself this morning. It's my belief that once I go back and forth a couple times, it will resync on the schedule. And at this point, it's not clear to me why the daughter drawing is not following the template that we've installed. At any rate, you got the idea. You have control over which template's being used, and you find it under Files, Properties, Custom Panel Schedule, and you have to select it from the XML file that's customized and saved, and as you do that, it will allow you to include the extra data that's been selected. Okay, sorry for being rusty on the presentation, but it seems like we've gotten across most of the information, and let me go ahead and see if we can take any questions. I do want to indicate that we have all the regional training set for 2017, so now's the time to register and reserve your seat. We have a lot of new locations that may be nearer to you than maybe sites were last year. So I appreciate everyone for attending and hope everyone has a very nice day. So long.